It is Saturday. It's 10 p.m. in Scandinavia. It's time for Swede Speaks Live. I am a Swede Speaks, and we are live on YouTube. And well, this is my Saturday live stream. I do this one every Saturday. I sometimes do live streams in the middle of the week, usually on Thursdays, but the Saturday one is pretty much set in stone. So, thank you all for being here. God bless everyone who is watching, if you're watching it live or if you're watching it later. As usual, there has been a lot going on. I will give you my point of view and we can discuss those and other things. But before we do that, I want to tell you what this channel is about, what I want to achieve. As you might have heard from me already, unless you're new to this live stream, I believe in critical mass, and I am trying to create just that, critical mass. Because to win any struggle, you don't need a majority. The majority of the people are indifferent, at least publicly. It is the minority of people, the activists, one way or the other, for or against any cause that decide. The 10 stubborn percent. That's what you need to win. The people who will stand up, who will not back down, and who will do that even when it costs them, even when it is an uphill and unpopular battle. For instance, most people in Sweden or in Canada don't support gender neutral pronouns, and still it's a thing around there. Why? Because those things were supported by the 10 stubborn percent. Most people in the United Kingdom don't support censorship of the press or throwing people in jail for opinions and reporting, but it happens. Why? The 10 stubborn percent. Most people in Sweden don't want public baths to have separate times for men and women, and most people in Sweden don't want Islamic prayer calls, but it happens. Why? You guessed it, the 10 stubborn percent. It doesn't matter if your cause is right or wrong when it comes to winning. What matters is that you are able to activate the 10 stubborn percent. I'm talking about activating people more than just getting them to vote for a specific candidate or party. I'm talking about people who will speak up publicly and stand by it. So, what do I want critical mass for and against? I'm in favor of Judeo-Christian Western civilization. Western civilization is based on the heritage from Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome. Jewish in its origin, Christian in its nature, combined with Greek philosophy and Roman law. This is what made Europe and the West great, and it was refined through the Anglo-American tradition of liberty, manifested through the Magna Carta and the American Revolution. This is my philosophy. This is what I want critical mass for. And we need to realize that if we cut off the roots, Western civilization will die. And you're not going to like what comes after the West if it dies. So what am I against then? Through dechristening of the West, other ideas, ideologies, tried to take the place of Christian faith. These things, left liberalism, the tyranny of revolutionary France, Marxism, and its more recent descendant, political correctness, they have a different origin than Judeo-Christian Western civilization. These ideas are from the West, but they are not of the West. These ideas have been around for a long time, but the development into mass movements started with the French Revolution. Did you know that Edmund Burke, the father of conservatism, supported the American Revolution but opposed the French? I think he had good reasons for that. These ideas, left liberalism, Marxism, communism, and political correctness, are all ideas that destroy societies. They create totalitarian states, or they give us societies filled with conflicts, like what we see with identity politics today. And political correctness paved the way for Islam and Islamization in the West. Islam has been growing for decades in Europe and in the West. It is not like any other religion. Islam is a strict set of rules for your life and for society in general. As opposed to Christianity, Islam doesn't separate between religion and the state. Some people wanted Jesus Christ to start a political revolt against the Roman Empire, but he refused, and he said that his kingdom was not of this world. Muhammad was a religious leader, but more than that, he was a political leader and a warlord. Muhammad built an empire. There is no separation between mosque and state in Islam. I know that there have been attempts to create Christian theocracies. They never worked out well, and they were not supported by actual Christian teachings. They were not based in the teachings of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Islam has created failed states, where you have to rely on your clan for security. Christianity created Western civilization. It can't get much clearer than that. Sure, The West always had its flaws, but we can't afford being relativists here. With all its faults and flaws, Western civilization is still the best civilization the world has ever seen. And the reason for this is that Western civilization was created by Christianity. I mean, people have heard a lot about European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. I won't defend any of these things, obviously, but how many heard of Islamic colonialism and the Arab slave trade? Did you know that Sweden and the United States were allied in the war against the Barbary states? Because these states were kidnapping and enslaving people. So, I want critical mass in favor of Judeo-Christian Western civilization and against left liberalism, totalitarianism, Marxism, political correctness, and Islam. That's what I'm trying to achieve. You might have noticed that I did not mention race, skin color, or ethnicity. There's a simple reason. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is your set of ideas. Your philosophy, your ideology, and your culture matters. So, as I like to say, I'm consistently anti-racist and consistently anti-Islam. So if you want to support my work, and I really hope that you do, you can send a super chat. Just click the little dollar sign and send whichever amount you like. I will read out all super chats, well, as long as you keep them clean. No racism, no anti-Semitism, no cursing, no incitement, please. In case of any of that, I will just simply thank you for the donation. And those are my house rules for the chat too. For the record, being anti-Islam is not racism, but don't incite against Muslims either. You can also support me through becoming a patron at Patreon, by PayPal, or by buying some of my merchandise. There are links for all of that in the box under the live stream. One moment, please. So anyway, like, subscribe, and share this live stream. Send it to friends and family, and please keep me in your prayers. So now there are, let's see here. There are 25 people watching. That's great. So I actually need to send a message to a person. So one moment, please. Just give me a second. All right, now I can concentrate on you. So I see there's some old friends and some new friends, I think. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Well, God bless you all, of course. So the first thing I would like to mention is the now worldwide support for Tommy Robinson and for free speech. By throwing Tommy Robinson in jail for bogus charges and with the help of a kangaroo court, the British system showed the world its true colors for everyone with eyes to see. As I mentioned before, I look back to the Magna Carta in my philosophy as a very important event. But what has happened to the country of Magna Carta? I'm very sad to see the United Kingdom going down a very destructive road. But I'm happy to see people coming out in support of free speech and in support of Tommy Robinson, especially in the UK, of course. Today, Football Lads Alliance held a march for Tommy Robinson and free speech in Manchester. The Football Lads Alliance declared publicly that they're against racism, which I think is great. We're on the same side, for free speech, for Tommy Robinson, and against racism. Yesterday, there were events in Oslo, Norway, and in Ottawa, Canada. Well, I was at the Oslo event, and there might come a video or two about it in a few days from now. There has also been events in Australia, Denmark, and Israel. Lord Pearson has spoken up for Tommy Robinson in the House of Lords. And it also seems like Lord Pearson has agreed to pay all legal fees for the duration of Tommy Robinson's imprisonment. Malcolm Lord Pearson, God bless that man. In the European Parliament, Tommy Robinson was defended by the Dutch member of the European Parliament, Marcel de Graaf. Next Saturday, June 9th, there will be pro-Tommy Robinson and pro-free speech events all over the world. Well, if I understood things correctly at least. I happen to know that there is an event planned outside the British Embassy in Oslo, June 9th at 12, well, noon local time. So if you're able to come to Oslo, feel free to join. And if you're near any other event, join them. In London, I mean, at least if you support free speech and want Tommy Robinson to be released. So in London, it will be at Whitehall at 3 p.m. local time. And you know, whatever we think of Tommy Robinson, of his statements, of his work, he should be allowed to do it. I would go on further and defend Tommy Robinson, of course. As far as I know, he is not a racist. He has not said a single racist thing publicly, but he fights for people that nobody else fought for. And he pointed out the corruption in the British system, where local authorities had been covering up what was going on. But even if you happen to disagree with his statements, he should still have free speech, right? I think that communists should have free speech, and I sure don't like communism. Actually, some people have started to say, free Tommy Robinson and knight him. Well, that's a good idea. Get Tommy Robinson out of prison and into the House of Lords. I mean, if you're going to have a House of Lords in the UK, having Tommy there would be great. Also, since members of parliament in the UK have absolute free speech according to the British Bill of Rights. But anyway, free speech and free Tommy Robinson, which is how I ended my speech at yesterday's event in Oslo, by the way. So speaking of freedom of speech, I want to mention the European Union. There's a vote coming up in the European Parliament. I believe that the vote is scheduled for June 20th this year. This year. So it's only 3 weeks left, and not even that. 2.5, I guess yeah, 18 days. That's 2.5 weeks. I'm talking about the copyright law reform in the EU, which will make it illegal to link to your sources without first asking them of their approval. You see how what this would do to the alternative media, right? As you might have noticed, I link to my sources to give you a chance to make up your minds for yourself whether I'm reliable or not. The proposed law includes powers for the media giants to charge licensing fees for posting links through a new type of copyright, also known as the link tax. This would break the internet. This would create a media oligopoly. This would efficiently kill off alternative media. Scary. And we shouldn't let this happen. Well, you can go to savethelink.org and sign a petition against it. There's a link to that in the box below. So I'll have a quick look and see what's going on. Let's see. The Cayman says rally at British Embassy in Washington, D.C. on June 3rd at 1. Free Tommy Robinson. You should absolutely go there if you're in the D.C. area. Absolutely. And well, hello to anyone who's new to the chat. So I would like to talk. I would like for us to take a look at Sweden. Recently, Sweden's integration minister Ylva Johansson, a social democrat, said that anyone who moves to Sweden should be made to study the laws that make up the Swedish way of life. There are two things I would like to say about that. First, there is a general election coming up in a little more than 3 months from now, on September 9th. Apparently, she is now talking tough, trying to avoid that more voters leave the Social Democrats and vote for the Sweden Democrats instead. Second, she doesn't differentiate between expats and asylum seekers. I don't know how she thinks she will be able to force, for instance, Polish workers or Canadian students at Swedish universities to study Swedish law. Perhaps it would be better if the government just said that it's your responsibility to follow the law, and that it will not help you if you say that you didn't know the law. Perhaps that would be better. I also want to mention the cultural relativism of the left. You know, the idea that all cultures are equal, that you can't say that, for instance, Danish culture is better than Pakistani culture? Well, there's a Swedish Twitter personality calling herself Moral Police, which means moral police or morality police. Recently, she wrote on Twitter that, quote, I grew up in a small society in Jämtland. That's in the northwest of Sweden, by the way. Gällö. We had an ever going on beef with the neighboring society, Bräcke. If a girl dated a guy from Bräcke, she was done. That we think that conflicts and honor culture is something new in Sweden is laughable. Close quote. Well, as Hanif Bali, member of Sweden's parliament for the Moderate Coalition Party, commented it, quote, apparently Jämtlanders from Gällö who date people from Bräcke are hunted by their uncles, have to live with protected identity on secret location, called whores by their whole families, thrown from balconies and executed by fathers. It is so nice that these relativization fools always stand up for the weak. Swedish left, close quote. Well, Mr. Bali, he's my favorite moderate, and he is right on the money. I have nothing to add. Let's see. Johan Scheulenstierna says, "Hello, Swede. Thanks for speaking up." Well, hello to you too. Yeah, that's right. Some people are pointing out that Gert Wilders is also upset about Tommy. Yeah, he made a good video comment on it, and I think the Dutch are, well, I guess I'd say the Dutch seem to be less insane than most other West Europeans. Um, that's the impression I've been getting, that the Dutch have a much more open debate than most other European or Western European countries. I guess I'd go for the Dutch and the Danish. I don't know about countries like Portugal and Iceland. I really don't know. But the Dutch and the Danes seem to have a pretty open debate. So that's so so that's good. I hope there will be international pressure, well, from all over the world against against what's going on in the UK with free speech and with Tommy Robinson. Alicia Bell says, "Are there any rallies for Tommy today?" Not that I know of. Well, there's one tomorrow in DC, but I haven't heard. No, not well. There was one earlier today in Manchester, but I don't know if there are any others today. Oh, the Cayman sent me a donation. Thank you very much. He says, "Hey Swede, how is the AFS doing in the polls?" The AFS is the alternative for Sweden. I don't think that they have a separate column for them in the polls in Sweden, so I think they are categorized as other parties, together with some other small parties like Medborgerlig Samling, the Civic Coalition, and some other parties. So I think the category other parties are at something like 4%, but I don't know how much of that would be the alternative for Sweden and how much would be the other parties. I don't think that they are going to get a seat in parliament, but I could be wrong, of course. Well, he didn't ask me about that, but as you know, I'm skeptical of the AFS, but I don't know. I know that the category other parties is at something like 4%, and to get a seat in Swedish parliament, you need 4% of the vote, or you need to get 12% of the vote in a voting district, which usually is the same thing as a county in Sweden. Dogbert52 says, "Howdy from Israel." Well, howdy to you too. And Akt Peterha says, "Moral, police tweets seem to be protected. Can't be read without some kind of confirmation." Yeah, that's right. I saw a screenshot of that tweet. So I'll link to the screenshot because Hanif Bali put that screenshot up on Facebook. And I think she might have protected her tweets after making that tweet. Maybe she got a lot of response she didn't like. Let's see here. Elizabeth Castle says, "Keep up the good work. Free Tommy and pray that God will keep him safe in prison. Thank you, Germany, for offering to give Tommy political asylum." Well, thank you. And absolutely free Tommy, and we have to pray for Tommy. I heard has Germany officially offered him asylum, or was this? I saw an interview with a German parliamentarian from the Alternative for Germany, and he was talking about this, but I didn't really catch if it was really Germany or if it was his party who wanted to give him asylum. So if you have any, well, any news on this, that would be wonderful. And I actually think that the Alternative for Germany, as far as I know, they are sane. I mean, of course, they could have individual racists or Jew bashers, as you can find in every party. Of course, you will always find some crazy people, but as far as I know, the Alternative for Germany, they seem to be sane. Turbo Turk says, "EU wrecking the internet. What is it about? What did I miss?" Well, it's It's the new proposed EU copyright law, and it's uh, well, for instance, they want a so-called link tax, which really is that they will give the media the power to charge a fee for me linking to them, for instance. I mean, if I link to them as a source under this video, well, it hasn't been approved yet. But if it's approved, well, basically they're creating an oligopoly. They're killing off the internet. But if you look at the links under here after, there's a link for something called Save the Link, and they describe some of it there. And I think I'll link to a few videos too. But yeah, the K-Man says something here. He says they can't enforce that outside of the EU, so it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. But the problem is that, for instance, YouTube might comply with those rules, even though YouTube is actually an American platform, because they might get sued by the EU or something. I don't know. But also, it might mean that you can't put up a platform in the EU because of all this trouble. So it seems like the EU don't want their own to be able to compete against, for instance, American companies. So it's really absurd. Alicia Bell says, I think they want to just kill freedom of thought in the EU. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen it with Tommy Robinson. And as I also said yesterday in my speech in Oslo, first they came for Tommy Robinson. And I didn't speak up. Well, I speak up, but, well, you know, I think you all know that poem about indifference. And yeah, because it's not just the UK. The UK are just kind of doing it very thoroughly. But I mean, you have similar laws, maybe not just as bad, but you have similar laws in other EU countries. For instance, in Sweden or in Finland, you have hate speech laws. You have this guy in Finland, Sebastian Tynkkynen, who is a politician for the Young Finns Party, or for the Finns Party, but he's in the youth wing, or he was at least. I don't know about now. Uh, and and he was fined last year. I mean, that was the one event that got me started doing this. Was after hearing of his court case when he was fined because he made comments on Islam on Facebook, and he was fined 300 euros for it. Well, at least they didn't throw him in jail like they do with Tommy Robinson, but it's the same principle. If you commit wrong think or wrong speak, you might be in trouble. Dogbert52 says, I guess the EU is feeling the pressure with the fall of Italy off the wagon. Yeah, I just saw that they're actually getting a government in Italy now, which seems to be a government with the five-star movement and the Lega Nord, I think. And it's kind of interesting because I spoke to an Italian a few days ago, and he talked about this, and he said that well, European media or Western European mainstream media, they just say that this is right-wing populism or something like that. But he claimed that, well, one of the parties, the Lega Nord, is obviously right-wing populists, which might be a good thing actually. But anyway, but the five-star movement are more or less left-wing populists. So what they have in common is the populism. So I guess they would, for instance, I assume they'll share a mutual anti-EU sentiment because populists tend not to like the EU. And I agree with them on that. I mean, I guess I'm kind of populist too. But to me, the word populist in itself is just a description. I mean, it just means that you want to do what people want you to do, and it could be good or bad. It depends on what the people want. Let's see. The Cayman says Americans are more upset than most EU countries about it. We are out of our minds about Tommy. Yeah, I think, well, the United States, you have a First Amendment and you have a Second Amendment. And you should really stick by your Second Amendment because that's the one thing that protects the first. I'm not kidding. At the same time as I think many Western Europeans, I guess actually most of us, things doesn't happen overnight. Usually things doesn't happen by a revolution. It could happen, but usually we are not talking about a revolution. We are talking more of creeping reforms, like how free speech is taken away in bits and pieces. Islamization happens in bits and pieces. So, well, when a country imposes socialism, well, if you have communism, that's one thing. That usually happens by revolution. But socialism usually is imposed little by little. It's like the way to boil a frog, You don't you don't throw a frog in hot water because it's going to jump out. But if the water is lukewarm and you just increase the temperature little by little, the frog will stay there until you killed off the frog. And that's sort of what happened to Western Europe in many respects when it comes to free speech and many other things. But I think in this case, especially free speech. So I agree completely with the K-man here. And well, Alicia Bell says that the British papers were very dismissive and vague. Yeah, exactly. Because first of all, they weren't allowed to talk about it, and when they were, I mean, the mainstream media, they don't like Tommy Robinson. And actually, talking about the media, Sweden has a very large part of Swedish media actually is alternative media, and I mean, the simple reason for that has to be that Swedish media won't tell you the truth, or there are certain things they won't report on. So they opened up the market for the alternative media to corner this market. And if that's good or bad, well, it could be discussed. It depends on who corners the market. If we have sane conservatives or if we have crazy Nazis or something in between, it depends. But I'm just saying, if you don't have the media reporting on things, you will get alternative media. And in some case, I mean, I'm the alternative media. So I'm not saying alternative media is bad. I'm just saying because Swedish media didn't want to, or Swedish mainstream media didn't want to report on things, didn't want to give people facts, well, then you had the growth of alternative media. Swedish alternative media, I think they're actually larger than Norwegian alternative media, although we've seen a rise of Norwegian alternative media too in the last year or so. There were a few before, but well, when Reset came along, you just had massive growth. And actually, I could mention there is a Norwegian newspaper called Nettavisen. That basically means the internet paper. But anyway, Nettavisen. They used to be a little edgy. I mean, they weren't really alternative media, but they were as edgy as you could get to be like a right-wing newspaper online. But then they were bought up by a company called A-media. A-media is well, that's basically a Labour Party press. They don't call it that, but that's basically what it is. And of course, they started changing the paper. They removed comment fields from articles where they didn't want people to give them, well, opinions they didn't like. Let's put it that way. And since that happened, I think it was in January. They lost 600,000 viewers or 600,000 views compared to us before, which is about a fourth, I think, of their viewers. These viewers or readers, of course, they go other places. They go to the Norwegian alternative media, to document.no, to rights.no, to reset.no. Those are the three big ones. Zapotec 1974 just confirms my point by saying, hey, I used to read Nettavisen, but read Reset now. Exactly. Yeah, that's the point I was making. Well, and good to see you here. So welcome. JD says, what do you think of the BBC? I don't trust them. Well, I don't trust the BBC either. And whenever you have a media company that lives off taxpayer money or of license payer, well, when they live off money, they don't have to make their money because it's collected by force. I guess you still have the license, the TV license in Britain, right? In Sweden, they are going to cancel the TV license, but instead they are going to to implement a TV tax, and it's been debated in Norway too. I think it's going to happen in Norway too, sadly, because if there is one thing I'm opposed to even more than a TV license, it's the TV tax. Because with a license, you can still choose not to have a TV. I mean, I wouldn't advocate that you lie to the state or something like that, but with a license, you can choose not to have a TV. But with a TV tax, there's no way to getting around it. If you have a TV or not, you have to pay the tax anyway. That's the Swedish system that will be in place, I think, from 2019. David Ray says, "I love that mug you're drinking from." Well, thank you. Okay, so do I. Akt Peterha says, "In Finland we had a TV license fee too. That was removed. Now we have a TV tax." Yeah, and I mean, I see the logic behind the TV tax because you don't see the individual taxes one by one. You just see that what you are paying taxes totally. I mean, on your paycheck, you'll just see that you paid, for instance, 30% in taxes or 50% in taxes, depends on which country you live in. But when you get an individual fee, that fee is actually very visible. You see the fee, it annoys you. I mean, Swedes are very annoyed about the TV license, but I don't think they will have the same kind of complaints over the TV tax because people won't see it anymore because it will be deducted from your paycheck. So in one way, I'm actually in favor of individual fees because people are more opposed to fees than to just general taxation. Zapotec 1974 says, agree, there should be no forced TV tax or TV license. The ones that want to watch, they can subscribe. Yeah, well, Zapotec, when it comes to channels like in Norway, we have NRK, which is the license payer funded one. In Sweden is SVT, license payer funded, the public broadcaster. They will be taxpayer funded soon. In Finland is Yle, in Denmark is DR, Danmarks Radio, in Britain is the BBC, and so on. I mean, if you ask me, you should just get rid of these channels. I mean, the left-wing propaganda they do, it's in the walls of these places. But okay, if you privatize the NRK, the SVT, the DR, the Yle, it will still do some good because it would mean that you can't force people to pay for it. I think PBS in America are funded by donations now, or I think so, if I remember correctly. Alicia Bell says, basic rules for the chat: keep it polite, don't incite. Yeah, that's exactly. That's basically the rules. So thank you for reminding people. Although it seems like a good bunch of people right now, and there are 32 people in here, and that's great. So thank you again for being here, because I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And I'm not just talking about donations, although donations are very nice. So, well, thanks to Cayman for donating before, but I mean, apart from that, it wouldn't be much fun for me to just speak into a webcam without anyone reacting. Yeah. So, I mean, that wouldn't do much good. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me in any way in any kind of way, and because I really depend on you. As I said, I couldn't do this without you. So thank you. Let's see. Right on says, not much truth or common sense in the media, which is why this stream is like a breath of fresh air. Well, thank you, right on. And isn't that funny? I started in January last year. I was basically just a guy with a laptop and a webcam, and I started with one subscriber. I think I know who my first subscriber was. I think it was a family member. But anyway, and I just went from there. And after that, I've been able to get some better equipment, and I've been able to learn a little about how to make videos. And it went from a one-man show. It's still, to a large extent, it's still a one-man show, but I'm not completely on my own anymore. I got someone helping me out with this, and that's great. And also, people send me links, people send me email and messages. So I have some people who are giving me ideas too, and that's great. I also get. I actually I got my first hate mail today, I think, or the first one I can remember. I might have gotten one before, but I don't remember. So the first one I actually remember getting was today. Some guy sent me two different emails from some service that would guarantee that the sender was anonymous. So, well, he just wrote that I was a filthy Christian and I should kill myself or something like that. I don't really care. I mean, I expect things like that to happen. I mean, to get that kind of reaction. Dogbert52 says, considering how much trouble the free internet have been causing the elites, I wonder what's the next steps. Yeah, I wonder that too. Oh, it says Mazel Tov on the hate mail. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Cayman says, you more than earned it, my friend. Well, thank you very much. And let's see. Uh, Laurel Bay says, we need to stop funding PBS right now, and you're doing great. Well, thank you for that. And I haven't actually watched PBS. I can't say much about it. More than that, I happen to know that things like that tend to attract people who are very, how can you put it? We're a left liberal. We're left wing. So, oh, let's see. Valhalla Dome says your opinions are valuable and certainly worthwhile considering. I regularly tune in. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. And well, you're an old timer, I think so. You've been around this channel for a good amount of time. Uh, let's see. Right on says, do most people in Scandinavia pay for cable TV like in the US? I'm not exactly sure what you mean because I think you can get almost free cable in the US. I think you can pay like a one-time payment of $25 or something like that in the US. If I remember my last visit to the Midwest correctly, that's actually an option, and that's not an option in Scandinavia. We can pay. I don't have cable TV. I don't have a TV, but what you can. So, but if I would like to have TV, I would have to pay for some kind of TV package. Yeah, and it would be a monthly payment of a certain amount, a few hundred kroner. What's that? Some from $50 and up, I think. I'm not sure. There might be a cheaper one out there somewhere. But I don't see the point. I actually don't see the point in paying for TV. Although I do see the point in paying for a service that you value. I mean, I see why people pay for Netflix, even though I kind of disagree with a lot of what they do. Margaret Kelly says Tommy Robinson is a hero. He absolutely is. And well, I mean, even if he's offered asylum in Germany, I don't know if he would take them up on it, because He doesn't seem to be that kind of person who will leave Britain voluntarily. If I was him, I would probably leave and go be a dissident somewhere else. If they would offer me, I mean, if I was him, I'm not him, but if I was, if they would offer me asylum in Poland or in Canada, maybe not Canada, but in Poland or the United States or something, I would probably take them up on the offer and I would be a dissident from abroad. Because I mean, a lot of the dissidents from the East Bloc, they couldn't live in the East Bloc. They had to escape. You had the exiled Russians living in America and in Sweden and in Germany and so on. But I don't think Tommy Robinson. I don't think he's the kind of person who would do that. I don't think he would be comfortable with it. Yeah, Margaret Kelly says uh, Tommy will never leave. He fights for his country. Yeah, and for this country. Oh, you're British. Okay. Yeah, and he does it from Britain. Let's see. Alicia Bell says, according to press reference, there are over 1.7 million cable subs in Sweden. Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm actually not sure how many people there are in the average household in Sweden. I guess I should have looked up that. I'll look that up later. Uh, But that sounds about right. With a population of about 10 million. Margaret Kelly says, no, I am in the US. Oh, okay. Uh, let's see. Act Petera says, Tommy would not be able to work in Germany. They have horrible thought crime laws and even an internet hate speech law. Yeah, that's true. So he wouldn't be able to do much from Germany. He would have to go to Hungary or something, or maybe Poland, or maybe the US. Laurel Bay says Trump would probably give Tommy asylum and citizenship. Well, I expect he probably would. I don't know, but I know that Donald Trump Jr. retweeted about Tommy Robinson. So I assume they. I mean, I can't imagine that the Trump Jr. hasn't mentioned this to his father. I can't imagine that. The Cayman says you can't have hate speech laws and still have free speech. Well, no. The problem with hate speech laws, I mean, I understand the logic behind some hate speech laws. I understand what they're trying to do because some people will say very nasty things that I don't like, things I don't want in my living room, things that I don't want in this chat. But you can't make a law what you can and can't say. I mean, apart from incitement, if you stand on the street and shout, loot, kill, and rape, that should absolutely be illegal. And it should absolutely be illegal to stand in a theater and shout fire if there isn't a fire. Things like that should be illegal. But apart from that, if you make a law, you're not allowed to make certain statements. The only thing that's going to happen then is that you create a sort of martyrs. You create people who will say, we're right, and the proof is that they ban us from saying so. Timothy Goddard says, I hope Trump gives Tommy and his family asylum in the US. I do too, but I don't know if Tommy Robinson's will if he will take him up on that kind of offer. Maybe his family would. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know them personally. The Cayman says, then the EU decides what is hate speech and control everything you say and do. Exactly. We can't have that, really. And then we will have a lot of political prisoners, or maybe a lot of people who get political fines, like the one they gave Sebastian Tynkkynen in Finland. And it's very interesting with the Tynkkynen case because I know that they were after him again a while back, a few months ago. He made a video about freedom of speech and how some of his opponents they had been digging up some statements from his past. They found something he had posted 2 or 3 years ago, and the police were going to investigate him again for hate speech. And he had been making statements about Islam, and he made it very, very clear that he doesn't care if people are black, white, yellow, brown, whatever. I mean, I don't think Tynkkynen is a racist. Even if he was, he should still be allowed to have free speech. I'm not saying that, but when it comes to Tynkkynen, I think it's the same thing with him as with Tommy Robinson. They don't see color. He made that very clear. But he sees a big problem with Islam, and he's been making posts about this for years. But the funny thing is, or the confusing me, after he made this update on his YouTube channel that the police had called him up, I haven't heard anything more from about that thing. He made another video a little later, so apparently he was out. But after that, nothing. And I've been looking online and I haven't found a word about it. So if any of my Finnish viewers know anything about what's going on with him and his case, please send me an email or tweet me or something. And you can find my contact information in the box below too. So it's pretty easy to get in touch with me. Laurel Bay says Tommy is supposedly in a low Muslim population prison. What do you mean by low? Do you mean there are not that many Muslims there, or do you mean that they have that there's a prison with not many people in it? Margaret Kelly says, I pray for Tommy's safety. Well, so do I. We should pray for his safety and his salvation. And we should pray for the UK that they turn into a civilized country again. I don't think they are anymore. I mean, not with the things. We also have the case with that old lady who had been questioning at one of the parks, one of the royal parks. She had questioned why Muslims were allowed to pray in the park when the regulations for the royal parks in England or in the UK says that you're not allowed to pray publicly in the parks. You could discuss the rules if you want to, but those are the rules. And she asked the police about that, and they didn't like that at all. And then suddenly they were at her door a few months later, and I mean, as far as I can tell, the video was legit. She was really dragged out from out of her house by the police. So things like that, it makes me think that Britain has really went very far in a totalitarian direction. Laurel Bay says, yes, there are not many Muslims. Well, that's good. I mean, for the safety of Tommy Robinson. And as I said, I'll say it again. Malcolm Lord Pearson, he stood in the House of Lords and he said that the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom will hold him personally responsible if anything happens to Tommy Robinson in prison. Maybe that worked. And it's a really insane situation in Britain. Apparently, I learned about this today. I heard it from someone who studies law in England, so it should be legit. And what I heard was that members of parliament, and as far as I can tell, it means both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, have absolute free speech. You can say whatever you want as a member of parliament in Britain. If it's right, if it's wrong, if it's polite, if it's racist, whatever you want to say, you can say it because you're a member of parliament. But if you're an ordinary British citizen, apparently you can't. So I guess they went from citizens to being subjects or something. Laurie P says, bye to all in the chat. I have to call a friend who is in the hospital. Have a great chat and God bless. Well, God bless you too. Margaret Kelly says, is there any part of Europe that citizens have the right to bear arms? Yeah, Switzerland. And I think Estonia. But when it comes to Switzerland, I'm certain that when it comes to Switzerland, I'm a little unsure, but I have heard that Estonia also have pretty liberal, and liberal as in liberty-minded gun laws. You can get a gun permit in Norway too, if you're a hunter or something like that. But you're not allowed to bring your gun with you out of your house. I mean, except if you go hunting or something like that. I think maybe Finland. I'm not sure about Finland. I have a vague memory that they had something like that in Finland. But well, if there are still some Finnish viewers in here, maybe they'll be able to inform us. But yeah, Switzerland is the one really sure case. And we could talk about Switzerland and about Swiss gun laws because during World War II, when all of Europe was more or less occupied by Germany, Switzerland, you had Italy run by fascist Mussolini in the south, you had Germany run by the Nazis and Hitler to the north. Austria was a part of was a part of Germany, or it was made a part of Germany. No one went into Switzerland because in Switzerland every household was armed. I think the law actually said that all married men in Switzerland had to have a gun, and that was the defense they had. So trying to go into Switzerland to occupy them, that would be like walking right into like walking into a wormhole. Is that what you say? Act Petera says we need Czech gun laws in Europe, a European Second Amendment. I've been hearing different things about the situation in Czechia. I know they were about to adopt a law last year that would give Czech citizens the right to own and carry arms and the right to own ammunition. Uh, but I've been hearing conflicting news about what happened to that law. Some people say it didn't pass, so I don't know. Stephen Cray says they won't allow guns in the UK because they know we'd use them. Yeah, that's a sad point because yeah, they know you would. And I mean, I don't think you should go out killing people. Of course not. I'm not going to incite, but I'm saying people should be allowed to have guns for self-defense and to defend people who needs being defended. And you know how shooters they always go to places where people are not armed. Or like in the case of Britain, first they disarm the people, then they take away freedom of speech. They make sure that your children are government property. Well, they are in Norway too, and in Sweden. I'm just saying. But I mean, like the Alfie case, and what was that other? Yeah, well, Alfie was the most recent one. How they wouldn't allow them to take their own child with them to Italy for treatment. Margaret Kelly says, so how do the women protect themselves? Pepper spray, perhaps? I know that you can buy pepper spray in Oslo. I don't know about Sweden. I think so. Although I think it's not actually legal, but I know that you can buy it. So yeah, I happen to know that for a fact, at least when it comes to Oslo. I'm not sure about Sweden. Sheldon Hofstadter says, you can get concealed carry permit for self-defense in Czechia, as I did 17 years ago. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Uh, uh, so how is Prague these days? Yeah, right. You had a pro Tommy Robinson event in Prague too recently. Timothy Goddard says it's more about the Bill of Rights than just guns. You're talking about the U.S. Bill of Rights now, right? Not to be confused with the British Bill of Rights. The Cayman says in Sweden they told the women to not go out at night. Well, actually, there's been a lot of local police authorities saying that you should avoid going out at night and stuff like that. And I mean, the job of the government, the proper function of government, is to protect you against foreign invasions and against criminals, basically, in and out of the fence. So, to use a leftist word, I think is very problematic when authorities instead tell you shouldn't go out at night. I mean, of course, you should be security minded. There are places I won't go at night because I'm not stupid. But in any case, you should have police who protect people. So, because that's bait, yeah. Stephen Cray says, "What on earth are we allowing to happen in Europe?" Well, I think we have been allowing creeping dictatorship because I mean, the EU. When Sweden joined the EU, there was much talk about how the EU was a club of democracies and how it would make sure there would be no more wars in Europe and stuff like that. But to me, it just seems like, okay, let's say they're right. Let's say that there won't be another war between countries in Europe because of the EU. Well, instead, you have a war between the people and the elites, or whatever you want to call it. But they're creating a situation where it could turn really nasty. I mean, I don't know about Britain. Maybe there won't be a civil war. Maybe Britain will turn around in time. Maybe it will be. I mean, I don't know. Stephen Cray says, a little piece at a time. Yeah, exactly. Laurel Bay says, USA was on its way to becoming Hillary. The military asked Trump to run. Is that confirmed? I mean, I think I've heard that before, but I don't know if it's confirmed or if it's a rumor. Was on its way to becoming Europe. Ah, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't been following the Democrat Party that closely, actually. I mean, I see some things that show up in my Facebook feed and on different YouTube channels and stuff like that. Of course, I see that. So, but I've been getting the impression that the Democrats are turning more left wing than they used to be, and of course, I don't think that's going to win them any elections in the near future because I think it scares off any somewhat sane supporter, and it will actually get them to vote for Trump or well, for the Republicans rather than for the Democrats, because if the Democrats just go very left wing, I mean, most people are not socialists, not even in Sweden. I mean, most people are not hardliners anyway. Most people are somewhere in the middle. And actually, to an extent, I would say that most people are pretty conservative in the way that they want things to be the way they are used to them being, which actually used to that actually used to benefit the social democrats in Sweden, because there were a lot of Swedes who couldn't remember anything else than a social democratic welfare state. But the social democrats turned into identity politics, or actually the social democrats in Sweden are kind of at war with themselves, because you have the leftist identity politics fraction, and then you have the other fraction who wants to be more they want to sound more responsibility minded, that you have to have Swedish values in Sweden and stuff like that, like the Swedish integration minister now. So if they lose the election in September, and they might actually, it looks to me like the party can crack. I mean, there probably will be a party called the Social Democrats still, but it might be a lot smaller because maybe the left wing fraction will jump ship or something and start their own party. Timothy Goddard says Tommy Robinson would like it in the USA. He probably would. I think so. It's a nice country. I mean, of course, all countries have their problems. Of course, there are areas in the US I probably wouldn't want to go, but on a whole, I like the US. The Cayman says the socialists are done. They are way down in the polls. Are you referring to America or to Sweden right now? Because I mean, you don't have a socialist party in the US that is anywhere near popular that calls themselves socialist. Cayman says Sweden. Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. I think if you combine the parties in government in Sweden, the Social Democrats and the Green Party, together with the Left Party, which is kind of their support party in parliament, they might get something like 40% together. And then the Sweden Democrats might get 20 till 25%. And then the other so-called non-socialist parties, the parties that traditionally have been opposed to socialism, might get between 35 and 40% in the vote. So you might end up with a 40-40-20 situation or something like that, because no one wants to talk to the Sweden Democrats. And I guess I'll preach to the choir, but the Sweden Democrats as a party are not racists. They have kicked out their racist members. They might have one or two left still, but they either keep a low profile or they get kicked out. Alicia Bell says, okay, I understand your use of the term. Which term was that? Oh, okay. She's referring to someone else here. Right. Yes, some terms can be misunderstood if you don't know the person who uses it. So in some cases you might need to explain what you mean so it doesn't look like you're saying some crazy racist stuff or something like that when you mean something else. It's a lot more difficult to read people in writing than to read them face to face, usually. Also because face to face, you might actually know the person, so you might know what the person is like and what he or she thinks. Cayman says, "Hey everyone, oh yeah, hey everyone, super chat. Yeah, I second that opinion. Thank you, Cayman. I absolutely agree." So I have noticed a slow but pretty steady growth to the number of people who are showing up in these live streams. I had it down for a while, but then it started growing again, so I'm very happy about that. And by the way, yeah, absolutely, as some people already pointed out, everyone like and share this live stream to friends and family. And if you're watching this after a live stream was, well, you can still share it to people. They can watch it after, and they can subscribe. Yeah, and if there is anyone in here who isn't already a subscriber, well, please subscribe. That'll be great, because I'm really happy about the people who show up here. I mean, in general, at least, and I'm very happy because well, without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm really happy about that. Let's see. Stephen Cray says something interesting here, and it reminds me about the conversation I had a few days ago. So I'll read it and then I'll comment on that. Stephen Cray says, in Luton, UK, I was brought up around Irish, Italian, Indian, Jamaicans, etc., 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 even the Welsh. And the only problems I had were with the followers of Islam. Yeah, well, uh, yesterday, after the demonstration in Oslo, uh, there was a British guy who showed up at the demonstration. I mean, he lived in Oslo. He had lived in Norway for a long time, he told me. So we had a conversation walking back to downtown Oslo. Uh, and he said something about anti-white sentiments and stuff like that in England and then I said, yeah, but it wasn't just white British children. Also Sikhs were attacked and stuff like that. And at the pro Tommy Robinson marches, you seen both black and white people showing up. And he said, well, yeah, of course the blacks show up, he said, because they have been victims of racism before, so they recognize when this happens. So after clarifying this, I don't think this British guy had a problem with black people per se. I think he had a problem with followers of Islam. Because we talked about this, and I said, well, black people in Britain, many of them are descendants of people who arrived from the Caribbean, so they are not Muslim. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So I think he was a good guy. But sometimes the wording people use, you have to dig a little to see what they really mean. And Stephen Cray says, I'll PayPal instead. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Stephen. That's great. Thank you very much. Margaret Kelly says, I can tell you, President Obama let many refugees in our country and Americans got scared. Some of our cities turned to a Muslim city overnight. They are on welfare and live better than many Americans. Is that true? I mean, I know that there are some places in the US. I think the most known place is Dearborn, Michigan. If I would go to Dearborn, I would probably keep a low profile, not to get attacked. But yeah, I know there are some places. I think I heard there were some places in Ohio that also got a large influx of Muslim refugees. Or yeah, I've heard about that from other sources. But it seems like, well, I think Trump is turning that around. But I mean, when it comes to President Trump, what people don't realize, at least people in Europe, when they don't realize that Trump is not a dictator. He can't just do whatever he wants. He still needs to get the Congress with him. He can do some things on the international stage, but when it comes to on the national level, he still needs to get Congress with him. So he still has heavy opposition that he has to fight to get things done. And even then, he's been able to get a lot of stuff done. Although this so-called Muslim ban, I mean, really it's a ban towards what it is, 7 countries, I think. And actually, Obama wanted to ban the same countries, I think. So, well, it's kind of hypocritical to point out Trump is the bad guy here. But he's really had to fight for it, and I don't think it's through right now. Or I don't know. I think it went through for a while, and then, yeah, it's been back and forth on that one. Stephen Cray says, I love a bit of Donald. Yeah, well, who knows? When he's done being president, maybe he can regain his mother's British citizenship or something like that, and go to the UK and be prime minister. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's an interesting thought. Because his mother, well, she was born in Scotland, so she was a British citizen. She probably gave up her citizenship at some point. Dogbert52 says, I don't know if it's true, but I heard Obama wanted to flood swing states with Muslims. I have no idea if that's true. What I do know is that Obama was a big appeaser. I think he started off with what's it called? He started off with that speech in Cairo in the beginning of his presidency, when he more or less just said sorry for being American, or something like that. When he talked about having a new relationship with the Muslim world and stuff like that. It didn't work, of course, but anyway. Uh, Sheldon Hofstadter says, okay, I support Swede monthly via Patreon under my real name. Well, thank you very much for that, Sheldon. So you're one of my patrons, but now I don't know who you are. But okay, or well, but well, you told me where you come from, so I guess I could make a wild. I'm not going to do that here, of course, but I can probably make a wild guess going through the names. So thank you very much for your support. That's definitely appreciated. I'm very happy about that. So I think there are some names here I don't recognize from before. I recognize most of you people, but I see a few new ones. So well, before we end this, uh, maybe you should just say a few words about where you come from and what's the hot issues, well, in your part of the world. Dogbert52 says that speech in Cairo, as someone that kind of understands Arab mentality, it was disastrous for US prestige, more than losing 10 wars. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I understand Arab mentality, but what I think about Arab mentality is that, well, the Arab mentality is that Arabs respect strength. They might not like you, but they respect strength. If you cave in to their mentality, or if you cave into the Muslim world, they'll just think that you're weak and that we can walk all over you, which, by the way, is what we're seeing with the no-go areas in Western Europe. I mean, at least in Sweden, and also the ones we're getting in Oslo. You can see when our authorities say that, oh, we're just going to talk to people, and they might behave nice if we're nice to them. That doesn't work at all with people who come from clan cultures. And clan culture, if anyone wants to misunderstand, I'll explain exactly what I mean. Clan culture has nothing to do with ethnicity, race, or skin color. Nothing at all. But it's a mentality. And if you don't act strong towards people with that mentality, you'll be the one taken advantage of. Zapotec 1974 says, Telemark, Norway. The hot issue here is the weather. Yeah, it's pretty hot around here. I saw that it will be hot around here for maybe one more week, and then it might be a little colder again. Turbo Turk says, I'm from Sweden, live on Gotland. That's the biggest island in Sweden, by the way. Lots of immigrants here, but I don't think it's as much of an issue here as on the mainland. That's interesting. So they don't talk about that on Gotland? I mean, you had this horrible rape case, was it a year ago? Something like that. Dogbert52 says, Israel, around 200 rockets and mortar bombs landed in Israel from Gaza after 3 weeks of non-stop attempts to penetrate the border, which coincided with Ramadan. Yeah, isn't that strange? And Alicia Bell says the most pressing issue here is Tommy, and I'm in the US. Yeah, I think Americans talk more about Tommy Robinson than most Western Europeans do. I mean, I think the British kind of have to talk about it. But apart from the British, and maybe the Irish, you know that Tommy Robinson is actually Irish, right? Or I mean, he's a British citizen now, of course, but I think both his parents were Irish. So when actually, yeah, before I end this, I was looking at the Norwegian. I was actually looking at the Norwegian public broadcaster because someone told me I should watch. I should watch the news clip from yesterday, and they mentioned Tommy Robinson, and they said how he founded the English Defence League, and they said that first they said he was a critic of Islam. So far, so good. But then they said he was opposed to immigration or something like that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You liars. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything about immigration as such. Maybe he did, but I haven't heard it. And I mean, uh, I had a conversation with one of the people in Republicans Abroad Norway, um, a black guy from Chicago, by the way, and we had a conversation about these hot button issues in Norway and in Sweden, and the situation with the immigration from Islamic countries and stuff like that. And he said the problem is when people pollute the message. When people, instead of saying, we don't want Islam here, we don't want clan cultures here, they start talking about immigrants. And he said, but I'm an immigrant. I work and I never committed a crime, not in my home country and not here. So he said the problem is when people just say immigrants instead of actually pointing out what they have a problem with, or maybe they don't know. But yeah, that's a problem. And that's what I wanted to get back to. When Norwegian TV says that Tommy Robinson is is against immigration or a xenophobe or something like that, I never heard him say anything xenophobic. So well, yeah. So the mainstream media, yeah, they are liars. I can't put it in any nicer way. Uh, but anyway, uh, this is kind of it. So if there's anything you want to bring up, do it now, because I'm about to wrap this up now. It's pretty hot here actually, uh, but thank you all for your support, for your participation. Like, subscribe, and share. I'll have a quick look what's going on in the chat. Alicia Bell says, everybody invite your friends next week, and tell the rules. Be polite and don't incite. Exactly. So on that note, have a nice day and God bless.